We're going to be doing things a little bit differently today, so I would invite you to be seated now. We have a very long gospel text, as you can see. Originally, it was only supposed to be verses 22 through 30, but I decided to include the first 22 verses so we would get to hear the whole Good Shepherd story. So instead of reading it all at the beginning, I'm going to be reading it in pieces throughout the sermon so that I don't have to keep saying, remember when I said, and remember when I said. So when you take into account all of the different aspects of Jesus' personality, which characteristic impresses you the most? I think for some of you, you might say it's his capacity to love or capacity for forgiveness. For others, it might be the fact that he prioritizes caring for the outcasts, those whom society has rejected. And still others of you might find his miraculous healing powers to be the most impressive. The fact that he can cure seemingly any ailment. But for me, at least in relationship to the story we have today, I am most impressed by his patience. People keep asking him again and again to explain who he is, and so he does. And the response that he gets is blank stares, disbelief. People saying, yes, that's great. I mean, I didn't really understand it, but you didn't answer our question. Who are you? Have you ever tried to explain something to someone 10 different times and they still didn't get it? It can be remarkably frustrating. The story that we have today begins with Jesus talking to the Pharisees, attempting to explain who he is to them. Jesus says, "Very truly I tell you, anyone who does not enter the sheepfold by the gate, but climbs in by another way, is a thief and a bandit. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep hear his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all of his own, he goes ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. They will not follow a stranger, but they will run from him because they do not know the voice of strangers." So as is customary with Jesus, he's not just going to spell it out for us. We got to work a little bit. But he begins by implying that he is the true shepherd of the sheep, and that all the people that came before him are thieves and bandits. But luckily, the sheep didn't listen to them because they know the voice of their true shepherd. I've mentioned in other sermons that Jesus wasn't the only candidate for Messiah at the time. There were other people who fit the mold much better than Jesus did, at least in regards to the expectations of the people of Israel. These people were leading guerrilla forces out in the foothills against the Roman occupation troops. They were strong military leaders, and many thought that one of them might be the Messiah, the one destined to free them from oppression and bondage. But Jesus makes this bold claim that all of those other supposed messiahs are nothing but thieves and bandits. And then what happens? You can probably guess that the people don't get it. Jesus used this figure of speech with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. So again, Jesus said to them, "Very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and bandits, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters by me will be saved and will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly." For all of us who have just heard the Easter story, this makes complete sense. Jesus is the gate through which the sheep will enter the sheepfold and find pasture. Jesus is the source of new life. Through him, we receive that new life, and not just a little bit, but abundantly. Still, Jesus can tell that the people aren't exactly picking up what he's laying down. So he continues, and he uses a reference that would have been instantly recognizable to anybody who was there. He continues by saying, "I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand, who is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and runs away. And the wolf snatches them and scatters them. The hired hand runs away because a hired hand does not care for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. And I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that do not belong to this fold. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. So there will be one flock, one shepherd. For this reason the Father loves me, because I lay down my life in order to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it up again. I have received this command from my Father. There's a few things I think that we need to unpack to be able to fully hear this statement the way it would have been heard by Jesus' audience. First is the whole image of what it means to be a shepherd in general. For those of us who have never actually tended sheep, I think that the picture of what it means to be a shepherd probably comes from that tranquil photo that was hanging in our Sunday school rooms when we were growing up. You guys know the one where Jesus is sitting on a rock and he's got his staff or a crook lying in the grass nearby, and it's this beautiful sunny day and this grassy green field, and he's cuddling with all of these adorable fluffy white sheep. It looks like it's the comfiest job in the world. But being a shepherd was not actually that glamorous. First of all, shepherds had a pretty low reputation at the time, which was why it was so amazing that angels proclaimed the birth of Jesus first to the shepherds in their field. Being a shepherd meant that you slept outside with your sheep regardless of what the weather was like. You had to fend off predators and deal with a pretty dirty animal. And then comes the reference I was telling you about. Jesus calls himself the Good Shepherd. While the image of a shepherd is a great way to understand Jesus' relationship to us, he didn't invent it. The Old Testament is full of references to both good and bad shepherds. One of the main ones being in the 34th chapter of the book of Ezekiel. God starts by claiming to be the Good Shepherd, and then says that King David will be established as shepherd over all the sheep. So by making this claim, Jesus is not only claiming to be a descendant of God's servant David, but he is also claiming to be directly of God as well. Ezekiel tells us that the Good Shepherd searches for and seeks out the lost sheep, feeds them, takes care of the injured, strengthens the weak. That definitely fits with what we know of Jesus. And then Jesus expands upon this by saying that the Good Shepherd will lay down his life for the sheep, something that we saw happen just a few weeks ago. And yet, still, the people don't get it. Again, the Jews were divided because of these words. Many of them were saying, "He has a demon and is out of his mind. Why listen to him?" Others were saying, "These are not the words of one who has a demon. Can a demon open the eyes of the blind?" So then a little while passes, and Jesus again finds himself in the temple. At that time, the festival of the dedication took place in Jerusalem. It was winter, and Jesus was walking in the temple in the portico of Solomon. So the Jews gathered around him and said to him, "How long will you keep us in suspense? If you are the Messiah, tell us plainly." You can see now why it was Jesus' patience that impressed me the most. He's probably thinking to himself, "Seriously? Guys, I literally just told you this. What do you want me to do? Get a big flashing neon sign that says Messiah with arrows pointing down at me?" But Jesus keeps his cool a lot better than I would have. And he simply says to them, "I have told you, and you do not believe. The works that I do in my Father's name testify to me, but you do not believe, because you do not belong to my sheep. My sheep hear my voice. I know them, and they follow me. I give them eternal life, and they will never perish. No one will snatch them out of my hand. What my Father has given me is greater than all else, and no one can snatch it out of the Father's hand. The Father and I are one." So now that we've heard the whole story, where do we fit in? What does this mean for us? I mean, we've heard Jesus explain again and again in a number of different ways that he is indeed the Messiah. But what does that mean to you and me? Well, for starters, we are the sheep. Now, I know that in normal, everyday life, if someone calls you a sheep, it's not exactly meant as a compliment. But in this case, it's one of the best things that we could ever hope to be. Because it means that we belong to Jesus. We are a part of his flock, and he is our shepherd. We're already in. Through the cleansing waters of baptism, God named and claimed you as a beloved child. There's no entrance exam. Jesus doesn't say, well, you need to do this, that, and the other thing, and then maybe I'll let you be one of my sheep. We belong to Jesus. And because he is the good shepherd, through him we have been given the gift of life. Life that's not only eternal, but is given abundantly. And that's really what it comes down to. Ultimately, we don't need to fully understand who Jesus is, because we belong to him, and that is enough. And because we belong to him, we know that we are meant for lives of abundance. We have received the abundant love of God, made known to us through the person of Jesus. A God who loves us so much that God became human, experienced everything that it means to be human, suffered a death on the cross, so that no matter what we go through, we can say with certainty that God is right there with us, helping us to make it through. But it doesn't stop there. See, the thing with abundance is it's more than we need. And that means that we were meant for lives where the love that we receive from God spills over the edges of our cups to others. We are meant to live lives that overflow with the love of God, and to share that love with everyone we encounter. It's not meant to be hoarded or stored away, but to flow freely from the source, God, to us, and in turn to the world around us. So I'd like you now to turn to somebody near you and tell that person, you are a sheep. Will you guys do that for me, please?
You are a sheep, Sam.
You are a sheep too, Steve. You're a sheep. And as you hear those words, hear also all that is implied by them. The fact that you belong to Jesus, that he loves and cares for you, and that the love of God that we receive through him is more than you could ever need. Which means that all of us sheep have a responsibility now to go out into the world and to share the love that we have been given by God. Amen.